Exercise 1. Several studies have shown that individuals who are ostracized, excluded, or rejected by others behave in ways that will increase their chances of eventually becoming accepted. These behaviors range from working harder in group settings to conforming to group perceptions or being more sensitive to information about others. For example, Williams and Summer found that women responded to ostracism by increasing their efforts on a subsequent group task. Similarly, Williams, Chung, and Choi observed that ostracized individuals were more likely than others to conform to the opinions of other people. Thus, these studies show that in response to social rejection, people seek to reconnect themselves with their social worlds. In addition, Gardner, Pickett, and Brewer found that individuals who experience social rejection are more likely to remember socially relevant information. Thus, belongingness needs appear to guide the processing and retention of information that is consistent with one's motive. Exercise 2. David Rock, author of Your Brain at Work, has described in fascinating detail the intricate mechanics of the brain on creativity and stress. We know, for example, that self-described happy people have more new ideas. We now know that stress decreases our cognitive resources, whereas mindfulness induces what is called a toward state in the brain, an openness to possibilities. In this condition, we feel curious, open-minded, and interested in what we are doing, all excellent qualities for thriving on the job. Neuroscience tells us that creativity and engagement are essential to making people happier. But the technological onslaught of today's world can also become highly stressful. Long hours, hard work, and high pressure are made worse by our being permanently plugged in. Though the introduction of laptop computers, high-speed internet, mobile technology, and social media have wonderful advantages in how we connect, they also reinforce behaviors that shut down the toward state and set us on autopilot. Exercise 3. For sea squirts, a two-part life cycle provides a quite obvious advantage. Adult sea squirts live very nicely, attached to the sea bottom. All the food they need comes drifting to them in the ocean currents, and they never have to move. They have even solved the problem of getting together to mate by shooting their sperms and eggs out into the water. But then, if the young sea squirts immediately settled down to the bottom, the sea squirt colony would soon be so crowded that they would have to grow on top of each other. There would not be enough food to feed the huge crowds of sea squirts, all jammed into a small area. So instead, the tadpole-like swimming larvae of the sea squirts do not settle down immediately. They swim and drift with the ocean currents. By the time they are ready to change to adults and take up a place on the ocean bottom, they have been scattered over a wide area. Exercise 4. The halo effect causes one trait about a person to color your attitude and perceptions of all her other traits. Even stranger, the more noticeable the aspect is when you form your first impression, the more difficult it becomes to change your attitude about that aspect. So, for example, if you are bowled over by the warmth and kindness of a coworker in your first week at a new job, you'll let him get away with a host of obnoxious behaviors later on, maybe even for years. If the first year of a relationship is deeply fulfilling and life-altering, it can take a long time to notice if things turn sour later. If you like specific aspects of an individual, the halo effect causes the positive appraisal to spread to other measurements and to resist attack. Beautiful people seem more intelligent. Strong people seem nobler. Friendly people seem more trustworthy, and so on. When they fall short, you forgive and defend them, sometimes unconsciously. Exercise 5. Divers working at high pressures underwater usually breathe air that is a mixture of oxygen and helium. Helium is substituted for nitrogen in this mixture because it is less soluble than nitrogen and therefore less likely to dissolve in the bloodstream. This offers better protection against one of the major hazards of diving, called the bends. If a diver returns to the surface too quickly after a dive, the relatively lower pressure at the surface than deep underwater causes dissolved gases to bubble out of solution in the blood. The effect is similar to the frothing in a bottle of soda water when the cap is removed. In human bodies, the gas bubbles released in this way often get trapped in the joints, causing extreme pain for the diver. This pain often makes it impossible for the diver to straighten up, which is why this condition is aptly named the bends. Exercise 6. In England in the early 1900s, property owners whose land was being eroded by wave action clamored for the government to take preventive action. Their island was disappearing beneath the sea. They argued so loudly that a royal commission was appointed to study the matter. After making a careful survey, the commission reported that over a period of 35 years, England and Wales lost 4,692 acres and gained 35,444 acres, giving a net gain of nearly 900 acres a year. This finding seemed to prove that people whose land disappeared complained more loudly than those whose land was increasing. It must be admitted, however, that the land lost probably was good cliffland on the open coast, which disappeared in a spectacular way, whereas the land gained was low, sandy, and not particularly valuable. Non-geologists are usually not aware that the very existence of a cliff is warning that erosional processes are at work, even though the changes seem to be very slow. Exercise 7. Solid objects cohere as wholes. While their shapes can be distorted to some degree to the extent that they are elastic, in the main they accelerate or tend to move as wholes in the direction of an applied force. Bodies of liquid differ in this respect. They freely adapt their shape to a containing vessel or an immersed solid and will simply give way to a solid object moving slowly through them. If a liquid body is subject to a force, it will not tend to move as a whole in the direction of that force. Rather, the applied force is converted by the liquid into an isotropic one that will urge the liquid to move in any direction open to it, unconstrained by any tendency for the liquid body to cohere. Water will tend to leak from a pipe with equal facility in any direction, and not just in the direction of the weight of the head of water bearing down on it. Exercise 8. Subjectivity is an integral part of all art, and sometimes even where it seems the least likely, one finds a comprehensive communication between the artist and the audience very difficult. For example, not just in abstract painting, but in the most straightforward painting. Just take one of the best-known paintings, the Mona Lisa, painted by Leonardo da Vinci. No one mistakes that this painting is the portrait of a woman. That much we know. However, the intriguing smile in this painting is interpreted in so many different ways, in terms of what state of the mind this smile depicts. Therefore, an audience can never be sure exactly what the artist had in mind. This holds true on all levels, and thus perfect communication cannot occur between most artists and their audiences through their art alone.